Heat and drought. Rainfall that's grown unpredictable. Storms of catastrophic power. And rising sea levels.
The Paris Climate Accord highlights the impact of climate change on humanity. The agreement emphasizes that climate change represents an urgent and potentially irreversible threat to human societies and the planet. And according to the report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Africa is the continent that will be most affected by climate change.
You may know that the data, we have 8.9 million IDPs and 3.9 million refugees in 2019, without fully counting 2020, which is a very difficult year that we have challenged as humanity, that definitely the impact of COVID have in all political, economic, and in our social aspects.
Climate change is hitting Africa hardest of all, although the continent has contributed least to the crisis. Crops are rotting in fields. Herders can no longer find water for their animals. And the COVID-19 pandemic could soon drive another 40 million people in sub-Saharan Africa into extreme poverty.
So people's becoming homeless from the extreme weather events and the conflict among the communities is stark. So that's the one who lead to the migrations. We are talking maybe to the international migrations where there are numbers of the peoples killing themselves into Mediterraneans to join the Europe. But there are huge numbers of the peoples who are internal displaced, who have to move from one region to another one. And that creates the conflict among those communities who have to share the resources.
How can we protect and support those who are displaced?
Now, what the model does is that it has now much more granular data on population exposure, which gives a clearer sense of the people who are likely to be displaced by future riverine floods. And it estimates that on average, we can expect 2.8 million people to be displaced by such floods in Africa during any given year in the future.
The Arctic temperature is more than 7 degrees higher than it was 100 years ago. This has vast implications. For example, floods, tropical storms, droughts around the world. This shows climate change is far more than an environmental issue. It has crucial implications for the economy, for peace and stability, for security and migration policy. It has therefore become one of the determining factors of foreign policy at large. The impact of climate change is real, not last in Africa.
We're also dealing with the problem of climate apartheid right now. So in the sense that the people that are paying the first and most brutal price look in a particular color, and those that historically carry the biggest weight of the... So we often wonder whether, in fact, the urgency would be much more if there were more urgent, immediate impacts happening in Europe and so on. Now, that's a very negative statement to start with, but let me just tell you why basically, this is no time for us to be being pally-pally with each other and not talking about the contradictions that exist and not actually getting absolutely serious about speaking truth to power. We are running out of time.
Development is being undermined by climate change, and we cannot ignore it, and we must address it, and we must address it up front.
I really think that we have also to stop seeing migration just negatively. And this is a key message from my side. I think we have to look also at migration as a part of the solution.
Most of the time, we talk basically about the environmental change as the cause for migration, and we frame it as a problem. And we rarely look at this as an opportunity, as an adaptation strategy.
The European in Africa is an expat, and the African in Europe is a migrant. It can't continue like that.
Authorities in Freetown have now determined to plant 1 million trees by 2022 and increase vegetation in the city by 50%. That will not only help protect residents in the future, but also contribute to the fight against climate change.
In addition to these commitments, and from the point of view of Africa, there's need to focus on building resilient societies in which people can adapt in place and prosper, so that there isn't need for continuous migration. In this regard, economic development remains one of the most effective ways to increase the capacity to adapt to climate change.
You cannot have climate resilience without economic growth, wealth creation, and massive job expansion. And energy, of course, is tied to everything. You need energy for the clean water and sanitation in cities. You need energy for the lighting to drive the industries that will create economic opportunity and growth. So you begin to see that nexus between energy, water and sanitation, energy and health service delivery.
There is a real need for urban planning, urban policy, which is aligned to environmental management and housing stock, recognizing this phenomenon of urbanization is here to stay. If you're going to have an influx of people, you need to plan to receive them. You need to plan to deliver services.
I think the continent needs to clarify, to have a clear understanding on where it wants to go, what it needs, and it has to do it. It has to be not only a top-down approach, but also a bottom-up approach, fully informed by those needs.
Should Europe turn into even more of a fortress? Or should it instead look for more ways to make legal migration from Africa possible?
Climate change is a common threat to all of us. No country can withdraw from the effects of global warming. People lose their entire existence because of disasters. The political stability of whole regions is at stake. To work together to ease the effects of climate change is therefore a question of humanity, but also of political rationality.
This strategy is about the EU and Africa joining forces in a solid, equal partnership to make the most of the green and the digital transformation. Together we can create decent jobs, good livelihoods, while also tackling climate change.
How can the international community come together to face the immense challenges ahead?
For the UN to remain credible, the Security Council needs to change. The composition of the Security Council actually reflects the realities after the Second World War, but it doesn't reflect the reality of today. We have to work not Eurocentric, but we have to work together with like-minded countries worldwide to see to it that the rules-based international order is observed. This cannot be done by one country, by one person.
Never let a crisis go to waste. There is a huge opportunity to work on where we can see how to, indeed, between Europe and Africa, work together to address these challenges by sharing best practices, by sharing experiences, and by looking at potential prospects.
I think that Germany has to do more. This is exactly my expectation. And I'm convinced that climate-induced migration is an issue that urgently needs open dialogues between countries and multilateral platforms to create safe pathways for migration to create a status that protects those who are likely to become stateless.
The only failure is to give up. It's doable. We can do it. It was done before. The key here is to do it differently, to do it with creativity, and to ensure the needed commitment. It's about people, and we should put back people at the heart of the climate action. When it comes to the continent, a mobile continent is a healthy continent. Yeah. When it comes to mobility, a mobile continent is a resourceful continent.
We always say nature is everything that we have, because nature is the one who are giving us food, giving us medicine. Even the medicine in the pharmacy, 70% of it coming from the nature, and then maybe 30% that from the chemical things that they are adding on it. But the expressions and all the substance are coming from nature, and food are coming from nature. We have a window of opportunity from now to the next 9 years or 10 years to increase all the ambitions and act now. If we didn't do that, we are going to do this no return point.
It's time to act.